Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be reviewing Timelash, the infamous Timelash. I've never seen Timelash before. This has been my first time watching it, but ooh, have I heard its reputation many, many times. Matter of fact, I'd heard people who told me I was very lucky because I hadn't seen Timelash. But it was a Colin Baker story I hadn't seen yet, a Classic Who story I hadn't seen yet, and I always enjoy seeing a Classic Who story for the first time, and I love, even at my age, being able to say that there are Classic Who stories I can see for the first time. It's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. So my season 22 set has arrived. I've got it right up here. Doesn't that look fantastic, by the way? Now, I did watch this with the updated effects. I've always heard about Timelash's notoriously bad effects for the most part and how they kind of pull the story down. I always assumed that was one of the things really hurting the story. So I watched it with the updated effects because I wanted my first impression of this story to be as good as it possibly could. However, after completing the story, I did go back and look up on YouTube where somebody had posted a comparison video where it has the new effects and the old effects side by side, so I could actually see what the original effects look like. It's like an 11-minute video. Because the effect, it's a little effects heavy in places, especially that bit when the Doctor is in the Timelash, because the original version of that is... Well, you could tell this is the one that kind of had the tight budget for the season. I mean, Classic Who pretty much always has a tight budget, but this was the really, really, really tight budget one for the season. And that time when the Sixth Doctor is in the Timelash getting those crystals... Ooh, it's bad. Now, the updated effects look much better. I do like the little blur effect it does. That's really good. My biggest problem is that it goes on too long. The part where he's in the Timelash just lasts too long. And so the effect does get a little wearing on the eyes after a while. But it is a good effect. It does look much more improved than it did originally. I love the updated time vortex for the outside of the Timelash. It looks like John Pertwee and Tom Baker's intros. Well, John Pertwee's second intro and Tom Baker's first intro. When you see the time vortex during their intros, it's like if they made that 70s intro with modern computers, and that's really impressive. It's a nice little nod and a wink, you know, to Doctor Who fans as well. And I like that because the original effect with just the tinsel hanging there did look pretty bad. I could see why the effects were part of what held this down. I will say that the makeup for the Borad looks really good. Let me point that out. There are times when classic Doctor Who can just nail an effect because it has such a reputation of having the cheesy, wobbly sets and bad effects. But there are times they nail it. That intro shot from Trial of a Time Lord, the very beginning of Mysterious Planet, is amazing. The realization of the Destroyer in Battlefield, even though the character is underutilized, the actual makeup for him is amazing. And the makeup for the Borad is amazing. He looks phenomenal. That is definitely a standout effect for Classic Who. It's done really well. The actor playing him plays it really well. He doesn't go over the top with it. He's very quiet. He has a really wicked, scary, creepy voice to where he doesn't have to shout. They talk about that in the making of video, which I also watched. And it's a good point. He gets his menace across very quietly, which I really, really like. The actor playing him does a good job. We have, of course, Paul Darrow as Tecker, whatever his name is. And I am not as familiar with Paul Darrow. I have very, very vague memories of Blake 7. I know I saw it some when I was little. But it's very, very vague memories of it. I know what it is. I've known what Blake 7 was since I was very little. But I haven't watched an episode of it probably since the 80s. I have a whole video actually talking about my odd relationship with Blake 7. But he's great in this. He looks like he's having fun. I like how they basically say he's playing Laurence of Olivier, playing Richard III in a story where it's probably not appropriate to do that. But he looks like he's having a good time, and I absolutely love watching him. I enjoyed on the Behind the Sofa listening to them comment on it too. You could tell they were having a ball, especially with him and Colin in a scene when Colin's kind of overacting, and they're like, "Take your teeth out of the scene, Colin." I always enjoy the Behind the Sofa when the Fifth Doctor TARDIS team is there. They're just so brutally honest in their opinions. I love it. So I enjoy that. I enjoy him playing his character. The story itself is fine. I did enjoy it. It's a little padded in places, a little overly long. I am having to adjust to the 45-minute format as opposed to the traditional 25-minute format of Classic Who, and I think they were having some trouble adjusting to it as well when making it. I know from the making of that episode 2 was running behind. Keep in mind, with 45 minutes, this is only a two-parter since they're 45 minutes. Episode 2 was running like 5 minutes under, so they had to shoot some scenes to pad it out. And those really draw on, like when the Doctor's trying to get Perry out of the TARDIS so he can go stop the missile. That part goes on way too long. And she's like, well, I forget what she says, like, you're being kind. And he's like, well, I'll be unkind. Get out! I like that. It's very Sixth Doctor, but the scene is unnecessary. It goes on too long, and it feels like padding, which is what it was. I like Herbert in it. I knew a lot about Timelash going into the story. I mentioned this in part 1. I already knew I already knew what the Borad looked like. I already knew who Herbert was. I already knew about Colin going into the time. There was a lot of things I knew about this story. So again, I already knew who Herbert was, since Herbert is a famous real character or a real person. And so that didn't come as a shock to me. But it's neat to realize that traveling with the Doctor on this adventure is kind of maybe what influenced him to create and write some of the things he did. That's pretty neat. I really did enjoy that. I like when Classic Who would only do this on occasion. In Modern Who, it seems like, every third episode he's meeting some famous person. And to be honest, I'm kind of sick of it. But we didn't see that a lot in Classic Who. He might mention having known a famous person like Shakespeare or Leonardo da Vinci, but he wasn't actually running into them. So that was, for the time, that's actually really impressive for him to run into a famous person like this. And to know that he might have been instrumental in kind of the ideas that they came up with. That's fascinating, and I enjoy that. Perry is less bothersome in this. I didn't really mind Perry. She has a few scenes when she's screaming in terror, which even Nicola Bryant didn't kind of like. The fact that this story does have kind of the 60s damsel in distress thing going on. Not that 60s Doctor Who always had that. Barbara's amazing. But the tropey 60s screaming in horror. Doctor, save me. There is some of that in this story, which gets a little repetitive. I actually really enjoy the story, except for, again, it goes on too long. And I kept thinking it was about to end. Again, probably because I'm not used to the longer run times. But every time I kept thinking the story was about over, something else would happen. All right, he killed the Borad, even though he told the Borad, this will reflect it back at you, and he shot anyway because he thought he was lying, and that whole scene's a little weird. But then, oh wait, we have to stop the missile. So they go and they do the long drawn-out part where they stop the missile, which is part of the padding out of that episode. And then after they stop the missile, yay, everybody's saved. Oh, nope, the Borad's still alive somehow. Oh, he can create clones. All right. Well, if he can create clones, why is he trying to mate with Perry? I don't... And then I'm like, again, every time I think it's over, it's like something else. It's like watching Last Christmas. And you know what Last Christmas is? It's a modern Doctor Who episode that's easily the worst Christmas special, aside from having Michael Troughton in it. Because every time I think it's over, there's something else. There's another twist. I'm like... But it gave me a chance to see more of the Borad makeup, and I like the Borad makeup because it's impressive. Colin is a little over the top in this one, as his acting style tends to be. To me, he's a very theatrical actor, which would be great on stage and on pantomime, but on camera and close-ups, it's a little grainy. It's not as bad here. And I do like some of the stuff his doctor gets to say. Some of the things are escaping me. He had a few lines I wish I could remember. There was a few moments. Like when he's telling the little snake-looking people on the thing, like, I am the president of Gallifrey, you don't want to kill me, then you'll get involved in a really big war, or you'll get to see just how small a scale this war is. I actually enjoyed the little threat behind that. That was pretty cool. And he has a couple other lines he says in the story. I was like, that's pretty good. I enjoy that. Overall, I liked the story. I do think it's underrated. But again, I did watch it with the updated effects. Even though I've seen the regular effects in comparison shots, I think if I'd watched it the first time with the regular effects, I wouldn't have liked it as much. It's definitely one of the ones where the budget, much like Invasion of Time, really hurts it. But seeing it with the updated effects, and I can tell the effects were done, I think, by the same people who did the effects on Nightmare on Eden, and I can kind of tell. Especially that teal-colored laser beam that was also in Nightmare on Eden. I wish they would pick another color. But to me, the updated effects do help the story a lot. The story itself is good. Again, it's too long in places, but I liked it. I found it a good watch. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching the behind the sofa for it. I enjoyed the making of documentary for it. And yeah, I think Timelash is a story I can see myself going back and rewatching. Maybe not this year, but next year. But I'll probably always watch it with the updated effects. I tend to almost always prefer the updated effects. I think the only story I can think of where I flat out preferred the regular effects was probably Planet of the Daleks. I do like the regular effects better for Planet of the Daleks. Mainly because of the episode 1 cliffhanger looks better when he reveals the invisible Dalek. Looks better with the original effects than with the updated effects. But all of the others, I think I pretty much always prefer the updated effects. They just add a little more life, give it a little more punch. So that is my thoughts on Timelash. I'd like to know what you think of Timelash. And have you watched Timelash with the updated effects on the Season 22 box set? Because if you haven't, you should give it a shot. See what you think of it. Other things to do, click the like button and the subscribe button and the bell for notifications. That helps me out. I am trying to reach 800 subscribers right now, so I would appreciate that. If you watch regularly and haven't subscribed yet, it's free. Other things to do, I also have a Patreon. If you would like to support me that way, there's a link to that down in the description below. All sorts of little bonus things. I try to do like a bonus video a week for some of my middle tier and up patrons, but sometimes I allow the lower tiers to do that too. I do like them to know I appreciate them as well, so I like to do polls and stuff for them as well. I want to give a shout out to two of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane and the Fifth Doctor. I appreciate their continued support. They've been with me for several months, and I appreciate them, as I do all of my patrons. Thank you very much. I also have a P.O. box. If there's anything you would like to send me, that's down in the description below. I wish somebody would send a copy of Blake 7. That's what I actually need to do. I need to watch Blake 7. It would be fun to do some reviews on Blake 7. I think some of y'all would enjoy that. If anybody wants to send something for Blake 7. And then I also, a nice little tribute to Paul Darrow. I know he passed away a couple years ago. And I also have a link to my Amazon wish list down in the description as well. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.